The cold wind blew across the broken land. The sky was dark, filled with smoke from old fires. Machines and metal pieces were scattered everywhere. It was a quiet, empty place. Until a sound broke the silence. A soft cry, not loud, not strong, but full of pain. Jake Turner, a human supply truck driver, stopped his vehicle. He had come to pick up spare parts from an old scrapyard, but that sound made him freeze. It was not wind. It was not an animal. It was someone crying. He turned off the engine and listened. There it was again. A weak, high-pitched sob, like a child. Jake grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the truck. He moved slowly, carefully, through the wreckage. Broken parts of old ships lay on top of each other like bones in a graveyard. The sound was louder now, closer. He walked around a burnt shuttle and stopped. In front of him was a half-buried escape pod, cracked and blackened from fire. The dime hatch was open just a little. Smoke and heat still came from inside, and from that pod came the crying. Jake knelt beside the pod and pushed the hatch open. It was hot. His hand burned, but he didn't stop. Inside, in the dim red emergency lights, he saw something that made his chest tighten. An alien woman sat hunched over, her body thin and shaking. Her clothes were torn. Her skin was pale gray with glowing blue marks. In her arms was a small alien child. A girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. She was coughing, eyes closed, barely breathing. The woman looked up at Jake with wide, terrified eyes. Her lips moved, but no words came. She was weak. She looked more scared than angry or dangerous. Jake raised both hands slowly. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The woman flinched but didn't move. She was using her body to shield the child. Her arms trembled. Jake took a step closer. He could see the child's face now. Her lips were dry. Her small chest moved with effort. The girl was sick, maybe dying. Jake looked around. No patrols, no drones, no cameras. "You'll die if you stay here," he whispered. Still, the woman said nothing, but her eyes followed his every move. She was trying to stay brave, but she was exhausted. He saw her arms shaking harder, like she couldn't hold the girl much longer. Jake knew what he had to do. He reached forward and gently touched the girl's arm. The woman gasped, but didn't stop him. Jake pulled the child into his arms carefully, like she was made of glass. The girl didn't fight. She was too weak. Then he looked at the woman and held out his other hand. "Come with me," he said. She looked at his hand, then at her daughter, then back at him. For a long second, she didn't move. Then slowly she reached out. He pulled her out of the pod. She stumbled, her legs barely holding her weight. Jake let her lean on him as he led them back to his truck. Inside the vehicle, he laid the girl across the back seat and gave her a small blanket. The woman sat beside her, still silent, but her eyes were full of something new now. Hope. Jake started the truck and drove away from the wreckage, heading toward his warehouse outside the city limits. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He just kept driving. Behind him, the scrapyard disappeared into smoke and silence. Jake's truck drove through the dark road, far from the scrapyard. The lights of the city were behind him now. Ahead, there was only quiet land and his old warehouse. The little alien girl lay in the back seat wrapped in a blanket. She didn't move. Her breathing was slow and weak. The alien woman sat beside her, holding her small hand tightly. She hadn't said a word since they left the crash. But her eyes were always watching Jake, watching the road, watching her child. Jake looked at her in the mirror. "I'm taking you to my place," he said. "No one will find you there." The woman didn't answer, but she gave a small nod. After a few more minutes, the truck stopped in front of a large metal building. It was old, a bit rusty but strong. This was Jake's home and workshop. He opened the side door and led them inside. The woman followed, carrying her daughter gently. Jake showed them a small room with a bed, a heater, and clean blankets. You can rest here, he said softly. She needs warmth, and maybe food. The woman placed her daughter on the bed and sat beside her. Her hands shook. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked up at Jake and tried to speak, but her voice was dry. Nothing came out. Jake walked away for a moment and came back with a cup of warm water and some soft bread. Here, he said. The woman took the cup slowly. She touched it to her daughter's lips first, helping her drink just a little. Then she drank the rest herself. The bread, she saved. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Jake didn't ask questions. He just brought more blankets and placed them around the girl. The child opened her eyes for a second and looked at him. Her eyes were a soft, glowing blue. Then she closed them again and leaned into her mother's arms. The woman looked at Jake. Slowly, she put her hand to her chest and bowed her head. "Thank you," she whispered. Jake's eyes widened. It was the first word she'd spoken. You speak English?" The woman paused and nodded slowly. "Little," she said. Her voice was rough, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time. Jake sat down on a chair across the room. "You're safe here," he said. "No one comes to this place. You can stay until she gets better." The woman looked down at her daughter and placed a gentle hand on her forehead. "She is Nora," she said slowly. "My daughter." "Nora," Jake repeated. "That's a pretty name." The woman gave a faint smile. "And you?" Jake asked. "Your name?" The woman looked unsure but then answered. "Silith." Jake nodded. "Nice to meet you, Silith." She looked surprised at his kindness. Then she turned to her daughter again and began humming a soft tune. It was not from Earth, it was something alien, something sad and sweet. Nora's breathing became calmer. The little girl finally slept. Jake stood up. "I'll let you rest. If you need anything, I'll be in the next room." Silith looked up at him. "You help us." "Why?" Jake didn't speak for a moment. He looked at the floor, then at the mother and child wrapped in thin blankets. "Because no one else would," he said. "And you didn't deserve to die out there." He turned off the main light, leaving a small lamp glowing in the corner. Then he walked out and gently closed the door. In the main room, Jake sat alone, staring at his old coffee mug. "What am I doing?" he whispered to himself. "Helping aliens? Hiding fugitives?" But then he remembered the way the girl had looked at him, like he was someone important, someone who gave hope. That night, Jake didn't sleep much. He kept checking the room, making sure they were still safe. Each time, he saw Silith holding her daughter, eyes open, never fully resting. A mother ready to fight the world for her child. And in his heart, Jake felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. The sun rose slowly over the empty land, casting pale light through the dusty windows of Jake's warehouse. Inside the small room, Silith sat beside her daughter Nora, who still hadn't woken properly. Her small chest rose and fell with effort. Her skin had lost its glow. Something was very wrong. Jake watched from the doorway. His chest tightened. He had seen sickness before, but this looked dangerous. "She needs help," he said quietly. Silith looked at him. Her eyes were tired but strong. She nodded once. Jake paced the floor. "But if I take her to a doctor, they'll report it. You're not registered. They'll arrest you. Maybe me too." Silith looked back at Nora. Her daughter made a soft sound like a tiny cry. The mother wiped her forehead, tears welling in her eyes. "Then she die?" Silith whispered. Jake stopped moving. He looked at the girl, at the weak rise and fall of her chest. Then he looked at Silith, her shoulders shaking, her face filled with fear she tried to hide. She had no weapons, no power, just a mother's heart. "No," Jake said firmly. "She won't die. Not if I can help it." 30 minutes later, Jake carried Nora to his truck. Silith followed, wrapping her hood tightly around her face. Jake gave her an old jacket to cover her alien skin. They couldn't risk being seen. He drove fast, avoiding the main roads. His hands were tight on the wheel. Every streetlight made his heart race. "I know someone," he said. "An old friend, retired doctor. Keeps quiet." Salith didn't speak. She kept her eyes on Nora, who was now wrapped in 2 blankets, her face pale and cold. They reached a small house on the edge of the industrial zone. Jake knocked on the door 3 times. A moment later, an older man opened it. He had gray hair, thick glasses, and wore a long coat over his pajamas. "Jake?" the man said. "It's 6 in the morning. What the hell?" Jake stepped forward. "Please, Marcus, I need help, no questions." Marcus frowned. "You're sweating, what's going on?" Jake stepped aside to show him the bundle in his arms. "She's sick and she's not from Earth." Marcus's eyes widened. "You brought an alien child to me? Are you insane?" "I had no choice," Jake said. "She'll die. You're the only one I trust." Marcus looked at Salith, who was now trembling. She bowed slightly, her lips pressed together, trying not to beg. After a long pause, Marcus sighed. "Get in, quickly." Inside, Marcus cleared a table and laid the girl down gently. He opened his med kit, pulled out old scanners, and began checking her vitals. "She's in bad shape," Marcus muttered. "Severe dehydration, fever. Her blood pressure is crashing. I've never treated her species before, but some things are the same." Jake stood beside him. "Can you save her?" Marcus didn't answer at first, then he nodded. "I'll try." He worked fast. Cool packs, IV fluids, small injections. Salith sat on the floor near the table, gripping the edge, praying softly in her language. Hours passed. Finally, Nora's breathing calmed. Her skin was still weak, but the shaking stopped. "She'll need rest," Marcus said. "She's not safe yet. But she has a chance now." Jake let out a long breath. Salith stood and bowed, deeply. "Thank you," she said, tears on her cheeks. Marcus looked at her, then back at Jake. "You know this puts both of us in danger, right?" "I know," Jake said. "But it was the right thing." Marcus shook his head. "You always did have a hero complex." Jake smiled. "Nah, just couldn't walk away this time." Back at the warehouse, Jake carried Nora inside again, laying her carefully on the bed. Salith followed with quiet steps. She sat beside her daughter, stroking her hair, whispering soft alien words. Jake watched them. Something inside him had changed. These weren't just strangers anymore, not just aliens. They were people. He looked at Salith. "She'll make it, thanks to you. You didn't give up." Salith looked at him for a long time. Then, in slow, careful English, she said, "You gave hope when I had none." Jake blinked. Nora stirred and murmured something in her sleep. Salith smiled for the first time since they met. Jake turned away, hiding the tight feeling in his chest. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew one thing: he would protect them no matter what. 3 days passed. Nora was getting better. Her fever had broken. She could now sit up and eat small bites of soup. Her soft voice sometimes whispered her mother's name in her sleep. Salith stayed beside her always, watching, guarding, loving. Jake watched them both from the workshop door. The once empty room now felt alive. It was quiet, peaceful, but Jake knew that peace was fragile, and it didn't last. That morning, while Jake was fixing a broken engine in the front room, he heard it, a sharp knock at the metal gate. Knock. Knock, knock. His heart jumped. No one ever visited. He peeked through the camera screen and saw 2 figures in black uniforms, government inspection officers, border security. Jake's blood went cold. They had scanners. They had clipboards. They had questions. He turned off the tools and wiped his hands quickly, walking toward the gate as calm as he could. He forced a smile and opened the door. "Morning," the taller officer said. "Jake Turner?" "That's me," Jake replied, voice steady. We received an alert about strange energy readings in this area. Might be old alien tech from the scrapyards. We're doing a routine check. Jake nodded slowly. Well, there's junk everywhere out here. Nothing dangerous in here. The shorter officer smiled coldly. Mind if we take a look anyway? Jake hesitated. Just 1 second. Then he stepped aside. Sure. Inside, the inspectors began scanning the warehouse. Jake's heart beat like a drum in his chest. He knew Salith and Nora were in the back room. He had left food and blankets before going to work, but now they had to hide. He grabbed his communicator and quickly tapped a coded message. Hide now. Do not make sound. He slid it under the door of the back room without knocking. Then he walked with the officers, acting like nothing was wrong. They scanned walls, machinery, the floor. So, you live here alone? One asked. Jake nodded. Just me and broken machines. Any visitors lately? The taller one asked casually. Jake shrugged. Not really. Just the wind and dust. The short one glanced around. Funny. Energy sensors say there was a power surge here 2 nights ago. Any idea why? Jake scratched his head. Probably the backup generator. It's old. It sparks sometimes. The officers exchanged a glance. One moved closer to the back hallway. Jake stepped in front. That area's full of heavy junk, dangerous. I wouldn't go without a helmet. The officer looked at him, then gave a small smirk. I think we'll risk it. In the back room, Salith had read the message. Her hands shook as she grabbed Nora and moved fast. She opened the old freezer compartment in the wall, a place Jake had shown her days ago. Only if you're in danger. She crawled inside with her child, holding Nora close and pulling the heavy door shut behind her. The space was dark, cold, silent. Nora whimpered once. Salith whispered softly, Shh, be still, like stone, for Mama. Nora stopped moving. Outside, footsteps came closer. Jake followed the officers, trying not to show fear. His hands were in his pockets, gripping a wrench tightly just in case. The shorter officer walked up to the door of the back room. Jake stepped forward. That room's just storage, nothing useful. The officer looked at him. We'll see. He reached for the handle. A loud crack echoed from the front as a power tool fell over. Jake turned fast. Crap, sorry, that tool slips sometimes. The officers looked back. Fine, one said. Let's wrap this up. Just junk anyway. They scanned a few more areas, took notes, and finally walked back to the gate. Be careful, Mr. Turner, the tall one said. Strange things are happening these days. If you see anything unusual, report it. Jake nodded. Sure thing, officer. He shut the gate, locked it, and didn't breathe again until they were gone. He ran back to the room and opened the freezer. Salith and Nora were huddled together, shaking. Her eyes were wide, full of fear. Jake helped them out carefully. You're safe, he said softly. They're gone. Salith looked up at him with a trembling voice. They come back? Jake nodded slowly. Maybe. I think they're watching now. Nora reached for Jake's hand. Her small fingers curled around his. Jake looked down at her and made a silent promise. He would protect them, even if it meant breaking the law, even if it meant risking everything. They were his family now. The warehouse felt different now, quieter, heavier. The walls seemed to listen. Even the wind outside didn't dare make a sound. Jake sat alone at the workbench, staring at his cold coffee. His hands were rough with oil, but his mind wasn't on machines. It was on the 2 lives hiding in the room behind him. He heard small footsteps, then a soft knock. He turned. It was Salith. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were tired but clear. She had braided her silver blue hair loosely, trying to look calm, for her child maybe, or for him. She sleeps, she said quietly. Jake nodded. That's good. She needs the rest. There was a pause. Then Salith stepped into the room and sat across from him. For the first time since the crash, she was choosing to talk. Not because of danger, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. "I never thanked you, truly," she said in slow, broken English. Jake waved a hand. "You don't have to." She shook her head. "No, I do." She placed her hand over her heart. "In my world, when someone saves life, we give our truth, our name, our story." Jake blinked. "I thought you already told me your name." "Salith." She smiled faintly. "That is the name others hear, but not my soul name. Not the one I carry inside." Jake sat up straight. Something in her voice was sacred, ancient. She looked down then back at him. "My true name is Salintharileth, daughter of the last sky singer." She paused, letting the words hang in the air like a soft song. Jake whispered, "That's beautiful." Salith gave a sad smile. "Not anymore. My people are gone. My home is ash. My voice is all I have left." She turned her eyes to the floor. "We ran. My husband carried Noura through fire. He told me to run, to fly the pod. He stayed to fight. I never saw him again." Jake felt the ache in her words. Not just grief, but guilt, a pain deeper than wounds. "I'm sorry," he said gently. She looked at him, her lips pressed tight. "He would have liked you," she said softly. "You care, even when it is not easy." Jake smiled a little. "I guess I'm too stubborn to leave people behind." She nodded slowly, then reached into her robe and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. It was a small charm, a silver spiral with glowing markings. "This is from our bond ceremony," she said. "It was my husband's. Now, it should be kept by someone good." She held it out. Jake shook his head. "No, I can't take that. It's family." Salith placed it in his hand. "You are family now," she said. The words hit him like a wave. Family. He had been alone for so long, he forgot what that word felt like. He held the charm tightly. "Thank you," he said. That night, Jake made them all a simple dinner. Warm broth, soft bread, and fruit from a nearby trade stop. Noura was awake now, sitting beside her mother with big, curious eyes. She looked at Jake and smiled shyly. Then she pointed to herself. "Noura," she said. Proudly, Jake chuckled. "Yes, I remember." She pointed at Salith. "Mama." Then at Jake. She tilted her head. Jake looked at Salith. Salith gave a soft nod. Noura clapped her hands and said, "Hero." Jake blinked. "Me?" Noura nodded seriously. "Mama say, you hero." Jake laughed, heart full for the first time in years. He looked at Salith again. She didn't laugh, but her eyes were warm. "You are," she said. "You saved us." Later, as the lights dimmed and the warehouse grew quiet, Jake sat near the door watching them sleep. Two aliens, lost alone, and now, his. He whispered into the dark, "Your name is safe with me, Salintharileth." And the night answered with silence and peace. The morning came too fast. The air was still. The clouds were heavy. Something felt wrong. Jake felt it before he even opened his eyes. A weight in his chest, a pressure in the air, like the world was holding its breath. He walked into the back room and found Salith already awake, gently combing Noura's hair with her fingers. The girl had color in her cheeks now. Her soft giggles filled the quiet space. Everything looked calm, but Jake's gut told him it wouldn't stay that way. An hour later, his old communicator buzzed. A message from Dr. Marcus. "We need to talk, urgent, meet me now." Jake didn't wait. He told Salith to stay inside and drove to the doctor's small home. When he arrived, Marcus didn't offer tea, didn't smile. His eyes were sharp, worried. "They know Jake," Marcus said. "Someone reported the girl. I don't know who, maybe a drone, maybe a neighbor saw something. But there's an official order now. Jake froze. What kind of order? Marcus handed him a tablet. Jake read the words slowly. Alien minor detected. Custody order issued. To be removed for containment and study. His blood turned cold. They want to take her, he whispered. Marcus nodded. They'll come soon, maybe hours, maybe less. Jake clenched his fists. She's not a lab rat, she's a little girl. They won't care, Jake. You know how they are. She's not human, so she's a subject. Just data. Jake stood there silent. Then he turned around and walked out the door. He had made a promise, and he was going to keep it. Back at the warehouse, Jake slammed the door shut and locked it. Salith jumped up. What is wrong? He looked her in the eyes. They're coming. For Nora. Salith didn't speak. She just held her daughter tightly. Jake looked around the room. The walls, the windows, the vents. We need to move, he said. Now. Salith nodded. Where? I know a place. An old smuggler hideout in the canyon. Hidden, safe. We'll go tonight. She looked at him, trembling. They will chase? Yes, he said. But I'll protect you. I swear. Then he turned to Nora. The little girl looked up at him with wide, glowing eyes. Are we going on an adventure? She asked sweetly. Jake knelt beside her and smiled. Yes, a very big one, but the escape didn't come in time. By nightfall, before they could even load the truck, they arrived. 2 black government transports rolled up to the edge of the warehouse. 4 officers in armor stepped out. Drones hovered in the air above. Them. Jake peeked through the crack in the metal gate. They're here, he whispered. Salith grabbed Nora and backed into the corner. Jake pulled out a wrench. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then, loud knocking shook the walls. Open. Up, government security, Jake shouted back. I know why you're here. Then cooperate. Hand over the alien child and step aside. She's a little girl, he yelled. She's not a danger to anyone. This is not a debate. Last warning, Turner. Jake's mind raced. He looked at the back room. Nora was clinging to her mother's cloak, eyes wide in fear. He couldn't let them take her, not now, not ever. He unlocked the door and stepped outside. I won't let you take her, he said. The officers raised their weapons. You are interfering with a legal order. You could be imprisoned. Jake raised his hands. Then lock me up, but you're not touching that child. The lead officer stepped forward. You're making a mistake. Jake stood firm. You already made one. Coming here. Just then, something unexpected happened. A camera drone buzzed overhead. Jake looked up and smiled. Because that drone wasn't theirs. It was his. Earlier that day, Jake had sent out a single video broadcast. Just one. He had filmed Salith's story. Her words, her tears, Nora's smile. He shared everything, and now the world was watching. Thousands of people. Live. The officers looked up as alerts came through their earpieces. Messages. Warnings. Public outrage. Someone had leaked the footage. Someone had exposed the truth. And now, they were caught in front of the world. The lead officer cursed and turned back to Jake. We'll be back, he hissed. This isn't over. Then he waved his hand. The team pulled out. The vehicles drove away. Inside the warehouse, Salith collapsed to her knees, hugging Nora tightly. Jake walked in, his hands still shaking. You're safe, he said. For now. Salith looked up at him, tears in her eyes. You told the world? Jake nodded. I had to. They needed to see the truth. She stood slowly, walked to him, and placed her hand on his chest. You gave us a voice, she whispered. You gave us a chance. Jake didn't know what to say, but he knew one thing. He wasn't just fighting for them anymore. He was fighting with them. The world had seen everything. Jake's video spread like wildfire across networks and screens. Millions watched as Salith told her story in her broken voice, how she fled war, how her husband died protecting them, how she hid in a crashed pod with her sick daughter. People cried, people got angry, people chose a side, and for the first time, many chose her side. In the days that followed, Jake's warehouse became something more than a hideout. It became a symbol. Reporters tried to camp outside. Protesters and supporters filled the nearby roads. But Jake kept the gates closed. Salith and Nora stayed inside, away from the noise. Inside those walls, something quiet and beautiful grew. Trust. Jake cooked breakfast every morning. It wasn't fancy, just toast and warm tea, but Nora would giggle every time he flipped the toast too high and caught it on her plate. Uncle Jake, she called him now, even though no one had told her to. He didn't correct her. He liked how it sounded. Salith cleaned the rooms and folded blankets every day, even when Jake told her to rest. She said in her world, to clean someone's space was to show gratitude. It means you are part of the home, she explained. Jake understood deeply. One afternoon, a package arrived, no sender name, just a symbol, a silver spiral. Salith froze when she saw it. Her fingers trembled. What is it? Jake asked. She slowly opened the box. Inside was a thin crystal disc and a note. They failed to break me. I escaped. I will find you. Salith, her eyes filled with tears. My brother, she whispered. He's alive. Jake smiled. You're not alone after all. No, she said, turning to him. Not anymore. But not all news was. Good. The government made a statement 2 days later. They said Jake broke the law. They said harboring an alien child was a federal crime. They offered him a deal. Give up Salith and Nora and charges would disappear. Jake read the letter once, then burned it. He stood on his own front steps that night, looked into the camera and said, I don't care about your laws. I care about people. These two are more human than most of you in charge. They're not aliens to me, they're my family. You want them? You'll have to come through me. That video became louder than any order. The pressure grew, but so did support. Thousands of people donated money, food, and supplies. Messages came in from across the stars, from aliens and humans alike. They called Jake a hero, a father, a protector. One day, a lawyer arrived. She wasn't sent by the government, but by a peaceful alien embassy. I believe they qualify for protection under galactic refugee law, she said. Jake raised a brow. Is that real? It is now, she smiled. Thanks to you, weeks passed. Nora laughed more now. She colored drawings and hung them on the walls, pictures of a big man with rough hands and a gentle alien with long hair, and a small girl holding both their hands. Jake looked at one of the drawings one morning and chuckled. That me? Nora nodded. You're taller in real life, but I ran out of space. Salith stepped beside him, her eyes soft. You gave her childhood back, she said. Jake looked at her. And you gave me something too. What? He paused, then said quietly, a reason to come home. One evening, under the soft orange sky, they stood outside together. Salith, Nora, and Jake. The wind was warm. The world was quiet. Salith turned to him. Jake, she said, in my culture, when a protector becomes part of your soul, we offer a bond. It means we stand together. Always. Jake blinked. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Salith stepped closer. I'm not asking, she whispered. I'm offering, not just for me, for Nora too. You don't have to say yes. Jake looked at the little girl clinging to her mother's leg, then at Salith, strong and kind, then at the horizon. He smiled. Then I won't say yes, he said. Salith looked surprised. He stepped forward and added, I'll say, I already belong. That night, 3 beings sat at one table, one human, one alien mother, one little girl who was no longer sick or scared. They ate, they laughed, and they slept in the same warm place, not as fugitives, not as strangers, but as family, forever.